Welcome to the USFL Today. I'm your host, Angelo Fioris. Make sure you follow me at USFL Today on Twitter, and make sure you follow our channel on YouTube at USFL Today. That's where you're going to find all of our great content, including shows like this one, which I'm looking forward to rolling out all off season and during the season, where we'll feature a different player and other people who are connected with the USFL. It's going to be a great place to hear all kinds of USFL stories. And speaking of USFL stories, I think we've got a pretty good one tonight. I'm happy to welcome to the show the punter of the Michigan Panthers, Mr. Kyle Kramer. Kyle, welcome to the show. How are you?
Happy to be here. Heard good things from some friends of ours, so I'm excited to be on the show for sure.
Awesome. Friends
First
of
podcast ever, I can say that.
This is your first podcast ever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to be the guy to usher you in. So that's awesome. Welcome.
Lead the way.
We were chatting briefly off the air, so to speak, right, Kyle, about your journey, and the story got so good. I was like, all right, let's stop and just start recording, right? You played college at Miami of Ohio. You were the punter there, but you weren't originally the punter, and you weren't highly recruited either. So let's talk about that story. How did you get to Miami of Ohio, and how did you become the punter?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Glen Ellen, Illinois, 45 minutes west of downtown Chicago. I went to Glenbard West High School. Didn't start on the football team until my senior year, and I was a quarterback, punter, and kicker. Pretty much, I obviously had to have a great senior year with any sort of chance to have hopes to play at the next level. So, I did well my senior year. We had like a little 7-on-7 competition before our senior season. We ended up winning the Illinois State 7-on-7 passing competition. So obviously that kind of put me on radar. So as a quarterback, and then we ended up going to the semifinals. We were a great team. We ended up losing the state semifinals to the eventual champions by like 4 points. So Miami of Ohio was my only FBS offer. I had a couple like Pioneer FCS League, walk-on opportunities there. But once I got into the business school of Miami of Ohio and got a walk-on opportunity, it was definitely my best opportunity to play at the highest level. So I took that, and I loved it.
Yeah. So you walked on as a quarterback first, right?
Yep. I redshirted and was able to travel doing some signal calling. So that was fun. Was on the sidelines doing some signal calling for the Red Hawks.
So before we get into what led you to becoming the kicker, let's talk about high school again for a second. So you were the quarterback senior season. You were the kicker and the punter. Were you the kicker and the punter for like junior, senior year? And were you equally as good at all three, or which one was more like the standout of the three positions for you?
I would just say I was probably pretty equally, above average. I wouldn't say I was great at any of the three, but I was, above average at all three. Probably, I guess I'd say I was the best at quarterback because, that's what Miami of Ohio brought me in for, but they knew that I punted in college too. So after that redshirt season, I didn't really see myself seeing the field as a quarterback. So went to the quarterback coach, was like, hey, there's an opportunity for me to start, earn a scholarship. Can I go punt? And he said, yeah, sure. I understand, we're kind of mutually in the same boat, understand. Didn't win the job off the bat, but halfway through the season, I had an opportunity and did well enough to be a 3.5-year starter from then on.
Yeah, and you finished with a above 42-yard average for your career. You punted in about 75 games or something like that, and that's with half a season that you didn't punt in your first year.
Yep.
So that's quite, and I believe that's like fourth all time in the program's history. So those are pretty good numbers and a lot to be proud of. So you transitioned into becoming a punter. What happens after Miami of Ohio? Was it USFL right away, or did you go somewhere else? That I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I graduated in 2020. Right when COVID was happening. So the way I really kind of got serious about it, I wasn't really sure if I was going to pursue it, but after my 5th year, I thought I was doing well enough. I got first team all conference. I'm like, let's go for it. And my special teams coordinator at Miami, my last season, I only had him for 1 year. His name's Doug Shear. He had a mutual friend because he came over from North Carolina State. And that mutual friend was AJ Cole, the Pro Bowl punter for the Raiders.
Right.
And so I got his contact. I asked AJ, I'm like, hey, how did you go from an above average college punter to, starting for an NFL team? He said, you got to come down to Birmingham. You got to train with this coach, Mike McCabe. You got to go to this, that, and the other combine and show out, but, come to Birmingham, train with us, and we'll get you ready. It definitely wasn't NFL or USFL right away. I was a free agent for 2 years. And, I just know halfway through the season, my coach and my agent were like, hey, get some film ready, send it out to the Panthers. And I remember getting that call from Kaiser and Fisher, and they're like, hey, we want you. We'll fly you in. I said, hey, I'm living in Homewood. I'm 10 minutes away. I can drive right now. I can be at, wherever you need me to be in Birmingham. I'm 10 minutes away. But that's basically how it went.
And that's where you guys were training in Birmingham with your special teams guru, so to speak, right?
Yes, Coach McCabe. So that's how, he has dozens of, pro, college, high school, guys in the transfer portal. A lot of guys come there to train, NFL, CFL, XFL, USFL, everybody. That's where I met Scott, which is how I met you. So
right.
Scott was my roommate for almost a year. Him and Nick Vogel.
Nice. So Scott Flanick is the long snapper for the New Jersey Generals, for those of you that aren't sure who Scott is. And of course, Nick Vogel is the kicker for the Houston Gamblers. So that's quite a trio, the three of you working out together and rooming together there in Birmingham, huh?
It works really well because, anytime we got free time, like, hey, we've got a full operation. Let's go to the field. We got a snap, hold, and kick right there. And, Scott would snap me, at 14 and a half yards, in our apartment. We get some drill work in. So constant grind when we were, all free agents and working hard for an opportunity.
And then now you look around and you see that all three of you are in the USFL together. And that's got to be pretty satisfying and pretty cool at the same time.
Yeah. I was a little late to the game because I know that Scott and Nick were drafted. And then I joined the Panthers week 6. So
right.
I'm glad I was able to be a part of it.
You were lucky enough to at least avoid some of the early drama that was going on with the Panthers with the kicking situation or not having a kicker situation and some people maybe being put in spots that was going to be hard for them to succeed in. That must have been you must have been relieved to avoid it, but that must be also a weird situation, like when there's a kicking room but then there's no kicker.
Well, when I came in, Cole Murphy was already there. So we had a kicker prior to that. I know, the situation before, and, that's obviously what gave, Cole and I opportunities. So,
right.
Yeah, I know that Cole had the opportunity the week before me, and I think that he punted for one of the games as well.
He did.
Yeah.
So you joined sometime at the end of May.
Yeah, my first game was against the Stallions, which was week 6.
The week 6 game, and then you punted straight through till the end of the year. And in the second half of the year, things did improve for the Panthers, much more competitive. The team seemed like they were still together and fighting all the way till the end, even though the results weren't going their way necessarily, especially in the early going.
Yeah. And, I could tell that everyone on the team was going to have that mindset from day one. Everyone was really welcoming, especially with, me being removed from a football team for about 2 years after being a free agent for that long. Everyone was super kind. Obviously, there was a hyper focus around the team. And, it was good to just kind of like be back on a team and be in a locker room and be around those guys. And, clearly, special teams was a big factor, but yeah, we were definitely, in a lot of close games. And hopefully that we can turn some of those, closer losses to some wins this year when we head up to Detroit.
Yeah, that's going to be fun playing in front of a home crowd. And, it's got to feel good to join a team in midstream like that to get accepted the way you described, and also not only to come back to a locker room for the first time in a couple of years, but for it to be a professional locker room too. That's got to be an awesome feeling to have earned your way in like that.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I remember my first practice. I was punting some footballs, just warming up, hitting to returners before we went into our punt team period. And Coach Fisher comes by and says, how many punts do you want to punt? I go, you're the head coach. You tell me as many as you want me to punt, because that's how it is in college. And Coach Fisher, being a pro coach for many years, was like, no, you're the guy. You let me know what you're comfortable with. You tell me the amount of reps you want to do that you feel comfortable with. You know your own body. And, that definitely opened me up to like, yeah, here we are. So let's, pick how many punts we're going to do, I guess. That was kind of putting me on the spot, but I'm like, yeah, let's just do 10 punts. Sure.
But then that
definitely different.
Yeah. And there is the difference between, say, college and pros, which is the coaches understand you're a pro and they know your business, and you tell them. So how many punts is it?
I probably did like 20 to the returners. I did 10 in the punt period. I usually like to hang. I don't like to do more than like, 40, 50 a day. Get too tired. Have to take a day off after.
40, 50 is a lot of punts, isn't it?
Well, when you've been doing it for years and years and years, it's all muscle memory now. I'm sure Brock told you that.
Yeah, that's true. Brock Miller, also of the Generals. Do you punt every day, or do you take a day off during the week or two?
I like to work out, maybe 3-4 times a week, punt 2 to 3 times a week, and every time we go out on the field, there's a purpose, whether I'm working on directional punts, if I'm working on open field, pooches, if something's more specific on drill work versus actual, swinging the leg, there's always a method behind it. And just another thing that I learned from McCabe being down here in Birmingham.
Oh, cool. That must have been very convenient also, having been training in Birmingham, and then boom, the season is right there for you as well, right? That must have made it easy to get on the radar.
And it made it all the more heartbreaking when I didn't get that call the first couple weeks. So, definitely just super appreciative. Just happy to be on the team, looking to make the most of my opportunity, making every rep count. Yeah.
And you kept at it. You didn't get the call on draft day, but you kept swinging your leg. You kept working out. You kept training with McCabe, and then you did get the call in week 6. And here you are now. You're going to start training camp as the incumbent punter for the Michigan Panthers. That's got to feel good too.
Yeah, and my agent was very helpful in the process. McCabe was, a huge asset in the process. Funny story. Steve Kaiser, our GM for the Panthers, I think, was with the Chicago Bears in the 80s, where Coach McCabe was, I believe, the punter for the Bears for a little while there. So they actually knew each other from, decades ago. So having that connection, when they needed a guy, they went to him. And I just happened to be available, and they liked my film. They liked my hang time, my consistency. And the rest is history. Fisher, he likes to do those fakes too. So being the quarterback background, he's got me to do that.
Yeah, it opens up a whole different package and creates a different sort of awareness among the opponent's coverage teams, in that they have to be aware now that you can throw the ball and legit style, not just as a gimmick. So that is a real weapon. Let me ask you this, Kyle. You talked about working out. We talked about the kicking workouts, right? Do you do a lot of lifting? Is it more cardio? Like what other working out do you do besides the kicking? How about that? I could have asked that question a lot easier, right?
You told me we had 20, 25 minutes. I'd need 2 hours for that.
Right.
Just very similar stuff to what the other guys are doing in Birmingham. We all go to a gym, and we've had, a workout program, off-season workout and in-season workouts. Obviously in the off-season, we're trying to grow our strength, flexibility, our cardio, pretty much every aspect. And then when you're in season, you're trying to maintain that. So obviously there's a huge mix of, different workouts that we're trying to do, but that's just kind of the simplified version of that.
You talked about working on different things and having practice with a purpose, one day directional, one day pooching, that kind of thing. Out of all those variety of things that you might be working on as a punter, which one of those is sort of your specialty or your more natural, where you work less at trying to improve at it and more at just honing it as opposed to some of the other things where it might be not your strengths?
Yeah, I'd say, this was something that, Coach Kaiser and my special teams coordinator, Coach Imamura, were fans of, were my hang time. I think something I've definitely improved on since college is my hang time. I remember in college, in a game, never punted over 5 seconds of hang time. And now, when I'm training out there, that's kind of where the bar is at. When I'm turning over a ball, I'm trying to get 5 seconds of hang time, and got one or two of those in the game this year, but definitely looking to grow on that this upcoming season. I'd say in the last season, I didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities to show off my, backspin pooch punt. And a lot of that is because, we have a kicker that can make a 60-yard field goal. So we're, not always in, that short distance range when you have such a consistent snapper and Shane Griffin and a kicker with a nuke leg like Cole Murphy.
Yeah, I guess the need for a pooch punt doesn't arise nearly as often when over half the field's covered by one leg, I guess.
And, still got to be prepared for it. We still rep it week in, week out. There's always, those situations where, maybe late in game, you're trying to pin them deep. And that's all stuff that we prep for.
So I know you're tight with Scott Flanick. I know you're friends with Vogel. Who was like, the half a season you spent in the Michigan locker room? Who'd you gravitate towards aside from Cole? Who was like your go-to
on the
guy?
Panthers?
Yeah,
definitely just the specialists. 100% just being with them. I know that Cole actually moved in to my apartment because, I'm in Homewood with my now fiance, was girlfriend at the time.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he ended up moving into our guest room for a couple weeks. So definitely got close with Cole. Shane, obviously close with him. We got a little group text. We're texting every day. We're trying to figure out a time where we can meet and get some training in before we have to report up to Michigan. I know that Shane was rooming with Frank Ginda, our linebacker. So got close with him too. I think the four of us and then a couple other guys all saw like Top Gun when that came out. I think that was week 7 or week 8. Great movie.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So those were, I thought everyone was really welcoming, but just kind of gravitated towards those just because of the position and, Shane living with Frank.
When are you guys reporting to Michigan? They give you a date yet?
I think the earliest I've heard is March 15th. I'm pretty sure it's anywhere between the 15th and like the 19th that weekend. And then, obviously the first game is a month after. So makes sense. Yeah.
Do we know what stadium in Michigan yet?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Nothing. Yeah, me neither. That is the one thing I've been digging, and I can't seem to find out yet. It's going to be quite.
I've heard, more rumors about us using facilities for like Eastern Michigan and Ypsilanti and stuff like that. So obviously, you want to know it off the bat. We want to know it off the bat because, we're trying to find a apartment to stay at. And
right. You guys are the ones that have to figure it out. You have to find a place to live, travel arrangements, getting there. And we're already 7 weeks from a alleged camp kickoff, and you got to get there before camp kicks off.
Yeah. Getting excited.
Yeah, it really is. It really is exciting. And it's crazy to think, Kyle, that it just seems like the first season kicked off and now we're only weeks away really from season 2. And
that's how you feel. I felt like that was forever ago. I'm ready to get back into it.
Yeah. And you're going to be playing in front of home crowds at least for 5 games this year.
Yeah.
Which is going to be cool.
And going back to my Miami of Ohio experience, I've been to Detroit one time in my life and played at Ford Field. My 5th year, we played against Central Michigan and won the MAC championship. So I love Detroit. My one time there was a very positive experience, and looking forward to more positive experiences and, getting back into that community and getting a little more involved up there.
Yeah, and spending about 3 or 4 months in the Detroit community, making the Panthers actually part of Michigan and Detroit now instead of just being the name. So that's very exciting also, sort of ground floor, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Kyle, this was great. We could probably talk for a while, but let's save it. We'll do another show together, I'm sure.
I'm specialist.
Yeah. We don't want to give all that away yet, right? We're gonna roll these out. Shh, big secret.
I didn't say anything. Cut that out.
I can always edit all of this, right? Kyle, thanks for taking the time for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the punter of the Michigan Panthers making his worldwide podcast debut, Mr. Kyle Kramer. Thanks for joining me, man. It was great having you.
Go Panthers. Let's hunt. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to our next time.
Have a great camp. We'll talk to you some point during camp.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Appreciate you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Kyle Kramer of the Michigan Panthers. Thanks for listening to USFL Today. Make sure you follow at USFL Today on Twitter, and also head over to YouTube at USFL Today is our channel. All the shows are going to be there. Kyle might have hinted at one of the shows we got working, and there's going to be a few more than that rolling out. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.